Hey Achievers, in this episode of Beginners Investing, I'm going to show you how I chose my investing platform. But before all that, the time has come to show you my extremely unimpressive portfolio. I know it's been a long time and I've promised you already a few times, but you'll see why it has taken me so long. I'm gonna explain in this video and it has a lot to do with the platforms. So let's not waste any time and let me show you my portfolio. Right now, my total value is about $12,500, but as you can see, most of it is actually cash. I own just a few stocks and a few ETFs. Some of them are longer term investments, but they're just really terrible investments, to be honest. Some of them turn out to be quite okay, and some of them are also quite passive, like this ETF, which is just a treasury bond. In a later video, I'm going to explain to you what exactly is an ETF, which are my favorite ETFs, and why we should invest in them. And in the next video, I'm going to walk you through all the positions that I have, why I have chosen them, all the terrible mistakes I've done with all my investing as a beginner until now. And also I'm gonna tell you why I'm sitting on so much cash, but that's for the next episode. So yeah guys, this is my extremely unimpressive portfolio for the moment. You're allowed to hate on me down in the comments for the buys that I've made and the mistakes that I've made that you can probably already see just from this screenshot. I will be looking to expand a lot more and diversify a lot more, but as I said, this is for a later video. Now, let's jump right into choosing an investment platform, and this could really be a headache, especially if you are in Europe. Back in the beginning of 2018, when I decided that I want to start investing, I set a few criteria for the platform that I wanted to use. And if you're a beginner investor, I'm pretty sure most of the criteria will be overlapping, so feel free to just apply them when you're looking for your platform. But if you have some other criteria, just feel free to add and do the research and just pick the platform that best suits you. But my main criteria were that it needs to be relatively easy to use, it needs to be secure, and it needs to have like a good history behind it. It's not just a newcomer that I want to, invest all my money into for the next 20 or 30 years, and this company might not even be there after 20 or 30 years. The last criteria that was important for me were the learning resources. As a beginner, I wanted to learn a little bit more. And yes, there were free resources on YouTube and there still are great resources. But when you get into a platform that its purpose is to invest and make you invest, like I'm gonna show you right now, it's much easier to get the better knowledge. And the platform that I chose back then was TD Ameritrade. This is one of the biggest platforms in the US, and I was extremely lucky actually, because the moment I registered, the European Union started implementing the so-called GDPR, which is for data protection. And after I managed to register, just a few months later, friends of mine couldn't register to TD Ameritrade. They couldn't open the accounts because that's usually how American companies deal with data protection for Europeans. They just stop accepting European clients. So I was just very lucky to be able to register for TD Ameritrade. I'm not sponsored by them in any way. I'm just gonna share my opinions and the things that I like about them, but also how I got to this company and why I chose them. So let me show you something. You can obviously do just a simple Google search and it will yield results like the best broker for 2020, 2021, whatever. But you need to always double check and triple check the information, because one site might be biased, but if you see a company that is constantly in the top 3 or the top 10, then you can be sure that you can trust this company. So just don't look at just one website. The one website that I chose for my initial research was stockbrokers.com. They have extremely good database of information about pretty much most of the online brokers that you need to be paying attention of. Each year they do like annual reviews for each of the brokers and they post it, and actually it's quite updated. You can see the dates here on top and make sure that you know that you're getting the most relevant information. As you can see here, TD Ameritrade is the first recommendation, and then going down it's Fidelity, it's Charles Schwab, E-Trade, and so on and so on and so on. That was the reason that I chose TD Ameritrade, because it had overall great reviews about everything, but also the most important point that stood out for me was that they had great resources for beginners. So they were full of videos and tests and information about beginner investors, which I really loved and I actually dove into back in 2018, but I didn't continue, and that's why now basically I'm starting from scratch. With all my learnings and all my research and everything. Another reason that I love this website and I actually chose TD Ameritrade is because they have the international search function. So you basically plug in your country and it gives you all the brokers that can operate and that can offer their services in your area. And when I do the search here in this website, it says Interactive Brokers on first place, which is I think in top 10 of their listings, then it's TD Ameritrade, then it's TradeStation. As you can see, this is not exactly accurate because, as I told you, TD Ameritrade stopped accepting customers, especially from Bulgaria, but I think it's also from the whole European Union. Not sure about that, but I think they stopped accepting European customers. So that's why I said it's very important to cross-check with different resources and, just make sure you're doing most of your research. And once you have narrowed down to a few brokers, just go to their websites. Usually they have quite a good customer support center or maybe a live chat, and that's how I also continue my research. So in the case that you live in the United States or in Canada, it's actually quite easy to choose a broker. All of them are great. If you choose TD Ameritrade or Charles Schwab, Fidelity, there's one that I don't see very often. M1 Finance has a really, really good interface, and I really love what the services that they offer, but I cannot open an account with them, but the Americans can easily. So just make sure you double check with a few different websites. Maybe you can go to Investopedia. They also have such kind of 2020 best broker reviews. And once you double check whichever you go with, I'm sure you're gonna be safe and your money is gonna be safe. There are usually a few differences, like for example, Fidelity can offer you to buy partial shares while TD Ameritrade doesn't have this function, but overall you'll be very satisfied. After Robinhood entered the market, all of the brokers basically have the zero fee policy. So when you're buying or trading, you don't really pay for the transactions. When I registered back in 2018, I was actually paying like $7 per transaction, which was crazy anyway, but that's gone, and that is great for all customers. But the situation is not that simple when it comes to finding a good broker in Europe. And the website that I chose for looking into brokers for Europe was brokerchooser.com. This was basically the only website that I could find and have like a good summary of European stockbrokers. And this is basically how it looked. Number one, it says Saxo, Anda, and IG. The better function that I actually used when I was doing the research is right up here, and it says find my brokers. You plug in your details and the things that you're interested in, and the platform step by step will kind of single out the best brokers for you. So let's just go through the steps. In my case, I'm in Bulgaria. Let's say I'm a first timer or I know the basics. You can obviously switch around, see the results if they're different. And then when you click next, I don't trade daily. I prefer long-term investment. Then I click next. So I'm interested in stocks and ETFs, maybe also crypto. Okay, it doesn't allow me to choose multiple choice, but anyway, so I'm mostly interested in stocks and ETFs. When I click next, it tells me that the best brokers for me are Revolut or Swissquote or First Trade. Now, if I was trusting only this review, I would go with Revolut. I'm in general a fan of their service. If you haven't seen my video on Revolut, you can click somewhere here and watch it. But for this specific topic, I'm not really sure that I want to invest in stocks with Revolut. Yes, they have a very simple interface and they offer quite a variety of stocks, but they haven't proven themselves as a financial service provider, and I wouldn't want to stick with them for the next 20 or 30 years. That's, I think, quite a lot of time, and we live in weird times, so I'm not going to risk it with Revolut. Also, Revolut doesn't have ETFs or all kinds of other things that I'm interested in. So, just purely looking at this, I'm not going to choose Revolut for sure. And that's why I said you need to always cross check with your criteria, what is the most important for you, and then, just research every company individually. And also, this Swissquote, it's I did some research on them, and they're quite expensive. And that's one of the major problems when you're looking for an investment broker in Europe. Like, there are services, they're pretty good services, like an Interactive Brokers, for example. They have great reviews all over. They might be paying for them, but anyway, it still tells a lot about the company. They offer great plans. Actually, one of their plans offers free trading, but it's only for the American market, and that's quite often the case with many other brokers. I was interested in TradeStation because they also offer services in Bulgaria, but for Europeans, as you can see on their website, like, they have their pricing for like American clients, and below, very low, like international market, the rates are completely different, and one trade costs about $5. And for me, once I got used to the TD Ameritrade with zero trading costs, I'm not sure I'm ready to make the step. So again, it's something to consider if you're a long-term investor. Probably it's not a deal breaker for many people, but it's something that you need to consider. If you're starting small, there are fees, for example, in Interactive Brokers for inactivity for the month. So if you're a long-term investor and you're planning to invest every 2 or 3 months, they will be charging you on a monthly basis. And there are just really many things to consider. I'm pretty sure at some point the Europeans will also catch up. We're a lot smaller market than the United States, and platforms like Robinhood are not actually yet in Europe. And I'm sure that at some point we'll also get zero fees all around. But this is something that accumulates, and usually when it comes to investing, one of the most important things is actually the costs of taxes and fees and brokerage fees and all those things that eat up your profit. And in the long term, when it comes to compounding, you're going to be losing quite a lot of money. So I'm not going to be able to tell you, guys, choose these platforms, or I'm not going to actually recommend any of the platforms here. You just need to do your own research. And as an ending point in this video, I can just give you my experience a little bit more and the questions that I've been asking each of the platforms when I was doing this research, in order to make sure that I get most of their service, and to be aware where I need to compromise, because right now I haven't found the perfect solution. Even in the eyes of TD Ameritrade, which is number one in one listing, it's number 3 here on this website, and they have great platform, great history, they have a bank behind them and everything. For example, I still cannot buy ETFs. Again, it's some kind of a GDPR regulation. I have no idea why they do this. So I'm kind of pushed not just to stay just with one account, but I would need probably look into a different account. Maybe I'll have to pay some brokerage tax or whatever, but owning ETFs for me, it's quite important, and in the future videos I'll tell you why. So some of the most important questions that you need to ask yourself first, but of course each of the platforms when you narrow them down, is what kind are the taxes? So do you have like a inactivity tax? Do you have like a per trade tax? So every time you buy a stock or an ETF or whatever, are they going to charge you something? How much is that? Is it depending on the money you spent or whatever? So just research really well, because on the websites they do have information, but it's not always great. So once you get into a live chat or on the phone with a company, I'm sure you're gonna have a lot more clarity. Another thing that you need to be researching is their history. Do they have a very solid background? Do they have a bank behind them? A lot of those companies, they do have banks. Like for example, the Saxo Bank in Europe. Well, I don't have access to it in Bulgaria anyway, but it's quite established and it's in Denmark. So the system there is quite established and it's quite strong. So quite safe for investing in the long run. Another thing that you need to be considering is also withdrawals. They have a lot of taxes for every time you want to get money out of the account. And in some cases, you know, to get money into the account, it's free, obviously, because you're going to invest with them. But after that, they charge you like $25, $50, whatever, per every transaction. And you need to be aware because with time, maybe in 20 years, when you rely on this cash, you might be facing quite a lot of taxes one more time. Something else to ask is if you're actually going to be owning the stocks, because there are a lot of platforms that you're basically renting them, or the company holds the stocks and they just pay you the dividends or whatever, but you don't really exercise your vote. For example, if you're a stockholder in a company, usually with TD Ameritrade, I receive regular emails when I can vote for something. These rights are not always available in each platform because in some platforms you basically don't own the stocks. I don't know what's the difference. Probably it's important in the long run, but this is something that again you need to consider and you need to be aware of. I would also advise you to just search general news about the company. So for example, Robinhood was very, very attractive because they actually introduced zero fee trading, but they have had a lot of scandals lately and you know, just it's not a company that I really want to invest in. There are a lot of people that choose it and so on, but there are a few factors like they don't have the history and they don't have a great reputation. Same goes with Revolut. Sometimes they get into scandals about their employees and other things, and they're constantly increasing their fees. Yeah, they're also offering a lot of features like buying gold, silver, now cryptocurrencies and so on. But again, it's something that it's not giving me trust and security, and that's actually the most important thing that you want to have when you're choosing an investment broker. That's pretty much for this video, guys. Thank you for sticking up with me until the end. I hope it was useful. Make sure if you have any comments, just post down below and I'll try to answer them and have a discussion and exchange information. And that's it. I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.